cavities. So they are known as the bony labyrinth. Okay. And within the bony labyrinth, inside the bony labyrinth, so this is the bony part, it's a bony labyrinth part. Now inside the bony labyrinth, so it consists of the membranous labyrinth. You know? And within the membranous labyrinth, so it consists of membranous ducts as well as the sac. Okay. So the internal ear mainly consists of the bony part, that is the bony labyrinth, and inside the bony labyrinth is the membranous part, which is known as the membranous labyrinth. And all these parts, so the internal ear, so all these parts, they are present within the petrous part of the temporal bone. Okay, so within the petrous part of the temporal bone, all these structures lie. Okay, so this is the internal ear here. So the internal ear, it lies between. Okay, so here you can see, or the part which is lateral to the internal ear is the middle ear cavity. So this is the middle ear cavity or the tympanic cavity. So the lateral to the middle ear cavity, the internal ear lies the middle ear cavity, and the medial part, the medial structure which lies medial to the internal ear. So this is the internal acoustic meatus. So this opening is the internal acoustic meatus, through which we are saying the nerves are passing, isn't it? The facial vestibulocochlear nerve. So this is the internal acoustic meatus. So the internal ear lies between the internal acoustic meatus here and the middle ear cavity. So this is the internal ear. So internal ear mainly consists of the bony part, which is known as the bony labyrinth, and inside the bony labyrinth is the membranous labyrinth. So it lies between the middle ear cavity and the internal acoustic meatus. So this is the internal acoustic meatus and this is the middle ear cavity. Now it mainly consists of two parts. So the outermost part, so this is the internal ear. Okay, so the outermost part, so this part is known as the bony labyrinth. So this is the bony part, and inside the bony labyrinth lies the membranous labyrinth. Now come to the bony labyrinth. So bony labyrinth is further divided into three parts. So this is the cochlea. So this is the cochlea, and the middle part, this is known as the vestibule, and these are the three semicircular canals. So these are the three different parts of the bony labyrinth. So cochlea, so this is the vestibule, and these are the three semicircular canals. All these are the parts of the bony labyrinth of the internal ear. Now, as you know, the middle ear cavity, so this middle ear cavity is filled with air, whereas the inner ear is filled with fluid. Okay. Now the bony part, the outside bony labyrinth, is filled with perilimb. So the fluid which is present within the bony labyrinth is known as the perilimb. Okay. And this bony part, see, you can see here, so this is the cochlea here, vestibule, and the three semicircular canals. The different parts of the bony labyrinth, they intercommunicate with each other. Okay, so they have communication with each other. So they communicate. That's how the fluid flows. They communicate with each other. Now come to the each part. So this is the cochlea here. So the cochlea, it resembles the shell of a snail, isn't it? So it looks like a snail. So it resembles the shell of a snail, and it is known as the cochlea. It's conical, and it consists of, so inside this, so this part, it consists of the cochlear canal. So inside this, it consists of a cochlear canal. So this is the cochlear canal. Okay, and this canal is present around a central part. Now this part is known as the modulus. Okay, so this is known as the modulus. So in the central part there is a modulus. So around that it forms a canal. So this is known as the cochlear canal. So this is the cochlea. So inside there is a cochlear canal. Now the modulus is the central pillar. Okay, so if we take a section here, so if we take horizontal section of the cochlea, this is how it looks. Okay, so this is the cochlea. If you take a section, so this is how the cochlea looks inside. Okay, now in the central part there is a central pillar. Now this conical central part, so this pillar is known as the modulus. So this central part is known as the modulus. Okay, so this modulus, which is conical in shape, and the apex, okay, so this is the apex of this modulus. So this is known as the cupola. So here you can see this is the cupola of the cochlea. Okay. So this is the
अनि रक्षा छ अनि रेशमा छ रिचिका छ रितिका खरेल छ
अन गरे सबै जाने अनि आफ्नो के गर्ने आफ्नो काम गर्ने हो त्यस्तो गर्यो भने आई जस्ट रिड द स्लाइड एन्ड गो है मलाई पनि केही मतलब छैन So this is the central pillar, right? So this is not as the modulus. So it is conical in shape. So whenever you say it is conical in shape, so it has an apex. So this is the apex. So the apex is known as the cupola. So this is the cupola, and this is the base. So this is the base of the modulus. So where do you find all this structure? When you take a section of the horizontal section of the cochlea. Okay. Now towards the base of the modulus cancer, there lies the internal acoustic meatus through which you can see this vestibulocochlear nerve passing through the internal acoustic meatus. So towards the base, there lies the internal acoustic meatus, and here you find number of foramina, so which is known as the tractus spiralis foraminosus, through which the fibers of the cochlear nerve passes. So this is the main cochlear nerve, and here you can see number of fibers of the cochlear nerve which pass through the small foramina, which is known as the tractus spiralis foraminosus. Is this clear? So bony parts, the different bony parts of the internal ear is the cochlea, vestibule, and the three semicircular canals. So if you take a section of the cochlea, here you find a conical shaped pillar which is known as the modulus. So this is the apex which is known as the cupola, and towards the base lies the internal acoustic meatus. Now come to the cochlear canals. If we see it internally, so here you will find a cochlear canal. Now this cochlear canal is arranged spirally around the modulus. Now you know what is this modulus. Okay, so around the modulus cancer you will find a cochlear canals. Now this is the cochlear canal, and this cochlear canal is formed when it takes a complete 2 and a 3/4 turns. And here you can see the number of turns. So how it is formed? It makes a complete 2 euta and अर्को चाहिँ 3/4 turn. Around 2.75 turns it makes. Okay. And the cochlear canal is formed here like this. Okay, so, and this is the cochlear canal inside the cochlea. So the apical turn, here lies the apical turn. So the apical turn, it begins at the cupola. Okay, so this is the cupola here, the apex of the modulus, and from here it starts to take a turn. So it makes around 2.75 turns. Okay, and this is the basal turn here. Now the basal turn, it is continuous with the another part. So this is the vestibule. Okay. So this is the apical turn, from here it starts. So it makes 2.75 turn or 2 and 3/4 turn. And this is the basal turn now. So the basal turn here is continuous with the vestibule. Okay, so this is the vestibule here. And when this cochlea, when it makes a turn, so because of this cancer, you will find a bulge in the medial wall of the medullary cavity, which is known as the promontory. So you should know how the medial wall of the medullary cavity, it consists of a bulge. So this bulge is known as the promontory. So how this bulge is formed? It is because of the basal turn of the cochlea. Okay. Now within the canal, here you can see, and then within the canal cancer there is a spiral ridge of bone. Now this is the spiral ridge of bone. Okay, this is the spiral ridge of bone, which is known as the osseous spiral lamina. Okay, so here you can see the sharp part. So this is the osseous spiral lamina. Okay, and this spiral lamina, it divides the cochlear canal into the upper part and the lower part. So the upper part is known as the scala vestibuli, and the lower part is known as the scala tympani. This is the cochlear canal. So within the cochlear canal, there is a ridge of bone. Okay, so this spiral ridge of bone, so this is known as the spiral lamina. And now this spiral lamina, it divides the cochlear canal into upper part and the lower part. Now the upper part is the scala vestibuli and lower part is the scala tympani. Now this is the scala vestibuli here, the lower part is the scala tympani, and between this the sharp projection of bone is known as the spiral lamina. Okay, now you can see the enlarged part here. So inside the cochlea here you can see See, so this is the osseous spiral lamina. You escape your section, the enlarged view, right? So this is the osseous spiral lamina. Okay, it divides the cochlear canal into the upper part. So this upper part is known as the scala vestibuli, and this lower part is known as the scala tympani. So scala vestibuli, scala tympani. Scala vestibuli, scala tympani. Okay, so this is the osseous spiral lamina. So is this clear? Internal ear के हुन्छ, the outer is the bony part हुन्छ, inner inside the bony part there is a membranous part. Okay, now what are the different parts of the bony labyrinth? It is the cochlea, यो चाहिँ cochlea भयो, which resembles the shell of a snail, हैन? The middle part like के भने, this is the vestibule, and there are the three semicircular canals. But what do you have inside the cochlea? There is a cochlear canal. Now how this cochlear canal is formed? So here the cochlear canal it is formed by this turn. There is the apical turn also, there is basal turn also. When it takes around to complete 2 or 3/4 turn, so here forms the cochlear canal. Now this cochlear canal is divided by the bony part, which is known as the spiral lamina. Okay, now it divides the cochlear canal into the upper part, which is known as the scala vestibuli, and the lower part is known as the scala tympani. Now at one point here, the scala vestibuli is roundly divided. So the upper is the scala vestibuli, the lower one is the scala tympani. Now at one point, the scala vestibuli and the scala tympani, they are continuous with each other, and that point lies near the apex, which is known as the helicotrema. Okay, so that point where the scala vestibuli or scala tympani they become continuous, so that part is the helicotrema. So here lies the helicotrema. Okay, so this is the cochlea. So inside there is the cochlear. That is the cochlear canal. If you see the enlarged view, it's the scala vestibuli here, scala tympani here, osseous spiral lamina here. Now the scala vestibuli, so this part, the scala vestibuli, it becomes continuous with the vestibule. So this is the vestibule here, whereas the scala tympani, it is closed by the membrane that is known as the secondary tympanic membrane. Okay. So that is known as secondary tympanic membrane. Now the free part, so this is the osseous spiral lamina. So the free part of the osseous spiral lamina, it is divided into two lips. So you have the upper part, so you have the lower part. So the two lips are the, so they are the vestibular lip, or there is the tympanic lip. So there are two lips. Okay. So this is the osseous spiral lamina divided into vestibular lip or the tympanic lip. Okay. Now the vestibular lip, it gives attachment to the vestibular membrane, whereas the tympanic lip gives attachment to the basilar membrane. So this is the vestibular membrane, and your part here, this is the basilar membrane. So vestibular lip, vestibular membrane here, tympanic lip, so it gives attachment to the basilar membrane. Okay, so cochlea, there is a cochlear canal, you should know. The osseous spiral lamina divides it into scala vestibular and scala tympani, and osseous spiral lamina it's placed into two lips. So they are the tympanic and the vestibular lips, giving attachment to the vestibular membrane and the basilar membrane. Now coming to the another part of the bony labyrinth, so that is known as the vestibule. So in this figure you can see, so this is the cochlea, so this part is the vestibule. So it is the central part of the bony labyrinth, and it lies medial to the tympanic cavity. So if you see this figure, so this is the tympanic cavity or the middle ear cavity. This is the vestibule. So the vestibule lies medial to the tympanic cavity. Okay, here. And it also lies between the cochlea in front and the semicircular canal behind. Okay, so cochlea in front, semicircular canal behind. So this is the vestibule here, and within the vestibule cancer you will find the saccule and utricle. So if you take out the vestibule, in the membranous labyrinth you will find a saccule, is membranous sac, so you will find a saccule and the utricle. Now coming to the features of the vestibule. So this is the vestibule here. So in the lateral wall of the vestibule here, so this is the lateral wall, this is the medial wall of the vestibule. So in the lateral wall cancer there is an opening, so that is known as the fenestra vestibuli. So this is the fenestra vestibuli here. So which is closed in the recent state by the foot plate of stapes. And you see these are the air ossicles within the middle air cavity. This is the foot plate of the stapes. Now this fenestra vestibuli, also known as the oval window. So this is closed in the recent state, by the foot plate of the stapes. So this is the foot plate of stapes here. See, this is the posterior wall now. In the posterior part of the vestibule, you will find the opening of the three semicircular canals. So there are anterior, posterior, and the lateral. So there are three semicircular canals which lie at the posterior part of the vestibule. And in the medial wall, there is a opening. So this is the medial wall here. So here you will find the opening of the vestibular aqueduct. So this is the opening of the vestibular aqueduct. So this is the medial wall, this is the lateral wall, and this is the posterior wall of the vestibule. Now this is the vestibule. So relations of the vestibule, see above, so as you know, middle air cavity boil. So this is the internal acoustic meatus here. So here you will find the passing of the two knobs. So the above one, so the superior one is the facial knob. This is the vestibulocochlear knob. So it is the facial knob. So above the vestibule, you will find the facial nerve. Okay, so this is the vestibule here. So the facial nerve passes above the vestibule. And on the medial part, you will find the internal acoustic meatus here. Okay, so this is the internal acoustic meatus, which lies on its medial part. And in the lateral part, there is a tympanic cavity. So this is the tympanic cavity. So these are the relations of the vestibule. Now come to the another part of the bony labyrinth. So they are the semicircular canals. So these are the three semicircular canals. So cochlea, vestibule, and the three semicircular canals. So what are the three semicircular canals? So this is the anterior semicircular canal. And this is the posterior semicircular canal. So this is the posterior semicircular canal, this is the anterior semicircular canal, and this is the lateral semicircular canal. Okay. Now all these canals have 6 openings, but they open into the vestibule by 5 openings. Okay, because each canal has 2 openings actually, but at one point so the 2 openings fuse here and they form the crus commune. So here you can see this is the crus commune. So these 3 semicircular canals, they open here by 5 openings, because the upper end of the posterior, now this is the posterior semicircular canal. So the upper end of the posterior and the medial end of the anterior. So this is anterior semicircular canal, this is the posterior semicircular canal. So the upper end of the posterior and the medial end of the anterior semicircular canals, here they unite. Okay, and they form a structure which is known as the crus commune. Okay, so this part is known as the crus commune. So instead of 6 canals, they open into the vestibule by the 5 openings. Okay, so altogether there are 5 openings because the 2 openings they fuse to form the crus commune here, and they open at the medial wall of the vestibule. So this is the vestibule here, so they open here. So this completes the bony part. I hope it's clear, right? So bony part, you should remember bony labyrinth, the cochlea, vestibule, the 3 semicircular canal boy. Cochlea I have already repeated twice, I think. So this is the vestibule boy. So the basal end of the cochlea continues here to the vestibule. There are 3 semicircular canal. Within the vestibule, there lies the sac utricum. And the 3 semicircular canals, they open into the medial wall of the vestibule by 5 openings, because the 2 openings, the medial end of anterior, upper end of the posterior, so they unite here and they form the crus commune. Okay, and all these bony parts, they intercommunicate with each other, and it contains a fluid that is known as perilimb. Okay, now coming to the membranous part here. So if you take out the bony part, bony part like so inside you will find the membranous labyrinth. Okay, so these are the membranous labyrinth here. So it consists of the close the membranous sac, so it consists of membranous sac and the ducts. So inside the canal there are ducts. Okay, and it also contains a fluid which is known as endolimb. So bony labyrinth, it consists of perilimb, whereas the membranous labyrinth, it consists of the endolimb. Now come to the different parts of the membranous labyrinth. Now bony part, there was a cochlea. Now about the part of the membranous labyrinth is inside the cochlea, there lies a cochlear duct. Okay, so inside the cochlea there is a cochlear duct. Now inside the vestibule there is a saccule and the utricle. So this is the saccule here and this is the utricle. So these two, saccule and utricle, lie within the vestibule. And in the bony part there were three semicircular canals. Now in the membranous part there are three semicircular ducts. Okay, so these are the three different parts of the membranous labyrinth. So inside the cochlea there is a cochlear duct. Inside the vestibule, there are saccule and utricle, and inside the three semicircular canals, there are three semicircular ducts. So, what are the different parts of the membranous labyrinth? Semicircular ducts, saccule and utricle, then the cochlear duct. Now, come to the cochlear duct, which is also known as the scala media. Okay, also known as scala media. Now, here you can see. So this is the scala vestibuli here, isn't it? Now this is the scala tympani. Now between the scala vestibuli and the scala tympani lies the scala media. So this is known as the cochlear duct, because within the cochlear, so this is the cochlear canal, isn't it? So inside the cochlear canal there is a cochlear duct. So where do you find the cochlear duct, or also known as the scala media, between these two, scala vestibuli and scala tympani. So here lies the cochlear duct. Okay, between the scala vestibuli and scala tympani. And this cochlear duct, it contains the organ of hearing, that is the peripheral organ of hearing, which is known as the spiral organ of Corti. So this is a MCQ question. Okay, so where do you find the organ of hearing? That is the peripheral organ or the spiral organ of hearing. So where do you find that? You find it in the cochlear duct, that is in the scala media. Your MCQ question, right? So within the scala media, so you'll find a peripheral organ of hearing. Okay. Now, what are the other parts you see here of a cochlear duct, man? So here you can see the basal end of the cochlea, or essentially the basal end of the cochlea. It enters the vestibule here. So this is the vestibule, so it enters the vestibule here and it joins here with the duct, so which is known as the ductus reunions. Our cochlear duct part, when it joins with the saccule by a duct. So here they also intercommunicate with each other. See, the cochlear duct, it joins with the saccule here by a ductus reunion. So this duct is known as the ductus reunion. So this is the ductus reunions, which joins the saccule and the basal end of the cochlear duct. Now these are the three semicircular ducts. See, these are the three semicircular ducts, and they unite with the saccule as well as the utricle. And the semicircular ducts, these are the three semicircular ducts for you. And within the vestibule, you will find the saccule and the utricle. Now all these parts, they contain the organ of the balance. The organ of hearing within the cochlear duct, but whereas the organ of balance within this semicircular duct and the saccule and the utricle. So this is responsible for hearing, and these two parts are responsible for the balance. So hearing and balance. Now the nerve which is responsible for both the functions, so that is the vestibulocochlear nerve. So this is the vestibulocochlear nerve, the eighth cranial nerve. So this is a vestibulocochlear nerve. So here you can see this is the interacoustic meatus, which passes the vestibulocochlear nerve. So here you can see this is facial, this is vestibulocochlear nerve. So vestibular is cochlear nerve, which is responsible for both hearing as well as the balance. So where do you find the organ of hearing? You will find the organ of hearing here within the cochlea, that is the cochlear duct, and organ of balance is found within the vestibule as well as the semicircular canal. Okay. Now come to the spiral organ of Corti. I think you have histology slide of this spiral organ of Corti. So this is our peripheral organ of hearing, and it rests on the basilar membrane. So do you remember now where is the basilar membrane? If you remember this figure, so this is the basilar membrane. So spiral organ of Corti lies here. So this is the osseous spiral lamina here. Osseous spiral lamina is split by it gives attachment to the vestibular membrane. It has a basilar membrane. Now within the basilar membrane, or you can say the spiral organ of Corti, it rests on the basilar membrane, and it is found in the cochlear duct or the scala media. Okay, so on the basilar membrane rests the spiral organ of Corti. So here you can see. See, this is the modulus here, your cochlear duct for you of इसको enlarged view, so enlarged view of this one part here. So scala vestibuli, scala tympani, scala media here. Okay, So if we take an enlarged view of this part, yes, in case there is a basilar membrane. If we take an enlarged view of this part, so this is the structure of the organ of Corti. Okay, spiral organ of Corti structure here. It consists of the inner rod cells. So these are the inner rod cells, outer rod cells. So inner rod cells here. There are outer rod cells, inner and outer hair cells are there, and you'll find a covering. So this is known as membrana tectoria. So this is the membrana tectoria, and you'll also find the supporting cells. So these are the supporting cells. There's the Dater cells or the Hensen cells, and you'll also find a cochlear knob. So this is the spiral organ of Corti. So membrana tectoria or the tectorial membrane is this, and hair cells. The outer hair cells, these are the outer hair cells, these are the inner hair cells, these are the supporting cells, Dater cells and Hensen cells. And the spiral organ of Corti is resting upon the basilar membrane. Now this is the basilar membrane here. Okay, the basilar membrane here. You sabi kya the spiral organ of Corti. It is mainly concerned for hearing, and you find it in the scala media or within the cochlear duct. Okay, and this is the cochlear knob, right? The knob responsible for hearing is the cochlear knob. So here you'll find all the sensory as well as the motor fibers of the cochlear branch of vestibulocochlear knob. Okay, so this is the structure of the spiral organ of Corti. Now coming to the next part of within the vestibule, membranous labyrinth, it consists of the saccule and utricle. So these are the globular parts in the So this is saccule, this is utricle. So they are contained within the vestibule. So it is mainly concerned with the balance or equilibrium. The main receptor which is present here is the macula. So macula is a receptor which is responsible for the equilibrium, and they lie within the saccule and the utricle. Now coming to the saccule here. Now this is the saccule, which is a globular. See the shape is go. It is a globular membranous sac. Okay, so the globular membranous sac. So this is the saccule here, and it communicates in front. So you can see the communication here. So it's communicating in front with the cochlear duct. Oh, it is communicating in front with the cochlear duct here by the ductus reunions. So communicating by rasa, and behind also it communicates with the utricle. So in front it is communicating with the cochlear duct, and behind is communicating with the utricle here by a Y-shaped sac, another sac. So this is known as utrico-saccular duct. The communication between the saccule and the utricle is by the utrico-saccular duct. So this is utrico-saccular duct, and here you can see the communication of the cochlear duct with the saccule. Now coming to the utricle, which is also a membranous sac. Okay, so this is a utricle, which is again a membranous sac, and it lies behind the saccule. Okay, so this is the utricle here, it lies behind the saccule here. And see, you can see here, so this is the utricle, it's communicating behind here, behind and above with the three semicircular ducts. Again, 1, 2, 3. Three semicircular ducts by the 5 openings here. Okay, and from this utrico-saccular, this is the utrico-saccular duct here. And so from the utrico-saccular duct, the another duct arises, which is known as the ductus endolymphaticus or endolymphatic duct. So you can see in this figure here it is a. So three semicircular ducts here. So this is the utricle here, this is the saccule here. Now this utricle communicates above here. You see it communicates with the three semicircular ducts by 5 openings, and from the utrico-saccular ducts again arises the endolymphatic duct. Now this is the endolymphatic duct. Okay, so this is the endolymphatic duct. So from the utrico-saccular duct the endolymphatic duct it becomes continuous. This is the endolymphatic duct here. So cochlear duct here, saccule and utricle, and these are the 3 semicircular ducts. So they also communicate with each other, and the fluid which is present here is the endolymph. So you know this 3 semicircular ducts contained within the bony canal and open here by the 5 openings. Now at one point it dilates. You can find a dilatation of the duct. So here you can see the dilatation, and you know the dilated part is known as the ampulla. Okay, so this is known as the crista ampullaris. So what is crista ampullaris? At one point the duct dilates. It's semicircular duct it usually dilates, and that forms the ampulla. And inside the ampulla there is a and this part is lined by the hair cells. Okay, so inside the ampulla, it is lined by the hair cells. Now this completes the main structures of the inner ear. I'm only left with applied aspects here. Right? So is this clear? Internal ear ma? So outer bony you must remember, right now. And this matches the three parts of the bony labyrinth. That is the cochlea, your cochlea भयो. So this is the vestibule. The middle part is the vestibule. So cochlea, vestibule, and these are the three semicircular canal भयो. So they intercommunicate, and so they have communication with each other. The bony part, and it is filled with the fluid that is known as the perilymph. Okay, so it is filled with perilymph. On यसमा अर्को के थाहा हुनु पर्यो भन्दा चाहिँ, see how does the cochlea, it resembles the shell of a snail, होइन, because it takes a number of turns. It's a spiral turn लिन्छ. So it takes two complete turn, अर्को चाहिँ 3-4 turn लिन्छ, होइन. And inside the cochlea there lies a cochlear canal. Now if you take a section of यसरी section लिँदाखेरि के हुन्छ, it consists of a central pillar हुन्छ त्यहाँ, which is known as the modulus. It is conical in shape, होइन. यसको apex like के भने, this is known as the cupola. So this is the cupola. So this is the apical part, होइन. Where do you find the basal part भन्दा चाहिँ, this is the basal part. It is towards the internal acoustic meatus. यो cochlear canal भित्र, cochlea भित्र के छ त? So it is this structure. के हुन्छ यसमा भन्दा चाहिँ, it is divided into a, के हुन्छ भित्र, there is a osseous spiral lamina. So the osseous spiral lamina it divides the cochlear canal into scala vestibuli, scala tympani, you must remember, on scala media. So this part is the scala media, lies the cochlear duct, and that cochlear duct contains the spiral organ of hearing. So that is important. And vestibule is the middle part, this is the vestibule middle part, and which this vestibule, it receives the opening of the 3 semicircular canal, and they usually open by 5 openings, because at one point the medial end of anterior up and they form the crus commune. So that you must remember. And if you take out the bony part, inside is the membranous part. So this is the bony part. The bony part the blue color line, it is represented here by the blue color structure. So this is the membranous labyrinth. The membranous labyrinth is all the sac-like structure. Inside the cochlear canal there is a cochlear duct. Inside the vestibule there is your membranous sac, there are the saccule and utricle. And inside the semicircular canal there are the 3 semicircular ducts, and they also communicate with each other. Here you can see the saccule is communicating in front with the cochlear duct, and saccule is communicating behind with the utricle, and utricle also receives the opening from the 3 semicircular duct, and it also contains a fluid that is known as endolymph. So they also communicate with each other, so that's important. And our organ of balance, the macula, so that is, macula is a receptor, so that you find within the semicircular duct as well as the saccule and the utricle. Coming to the applied aspects of, so what is vertigo? So whenever you get dizziness, vertigo, it can also occur due to the excessive stimulation of the semicircular ducts. Where vertigo may not always be due to the pathology in the central nervous system. So vertigo can also be due to any pathology in the ear. Whenever patient comes with vertigo and dizziness, vomiting, it's not that you always suspect something pathology in the brain, central nervous system, but it is also maybe due to some pathology in the ear, because excessive stimulation of the semicircular ducts can cause vertigo. Whenever patient comes with vertigo, you must do an ENT consultation. Okay. Now motion sickness. Whenever you travel, you vomit. So that is due to excessive stimulation of the utricle and the saccule. That is due to stimulation of utricle and saccule. Or the persistent exposure to the loud sound, especially in factories or mines factory or the person who is continuously exposed to the loud sound, so that may cause degeneration of the organ of the caudae, and that leads to high-tone deafness. So you should know where does this organ of caudae lies, right? Isko sabai thaha hunनुपर्छ organ of caudae. So Persistent exposure to the loud sound may cause degeneration of the organ of Cotta, leading to high-tone deafness. And nowadays is available in the cochlear implants, a device which is used in non-functioning cochlea. If the cochlea is non-functioning, the person is not able to hear, so you can do cochlear implants. Or the maternal infection, with rubella during 6 to 9 weeks of pregnancy. 6 to 9 weeks pregnant lady, whenever the mother is infected with rubella, or whenever she uses drugs like streptomycin, thalidomide, or chloroquine, that can lead to cochlear damage. So you should be very careful, right? Like prescribing the drug. So what are the drugs that mainly cause the cochlear damage? So they are the streptomycin, thalidomide, or chloroquine. Or the maternal infection with rubella. So that may also cause cochlear damage. Okay, so this completes our class on internal ear. External ear, internal ear. So gross spot you have two questions from this special sense. They were one ear but the shear eye button. And it is important of ENT posting all the diseases of the ear, so you should be you should know each and every part of the ear. It is also present within the cranial cavity or within the petrous part of the temporal bone. How it is related with the functions of the central nervous system. So that is also important. So ear is important as well, right? So this completes our class in ear.